So I'm originally from South Jamaica, Queens, New York, born and raised. I lived in the projects in New York City. I lived in about 12 different places in New York City. I lived in basements, I lived in attics, I lived in a whole bunch of different things that I can't say that I'm most proud of, but at the same time, it shaped me. So some of the struggles that you might go through, I went through those same struggles. I grew up with a single mom house. My dad left us when we was about 11 years old. My dad used to commit domestic violence. He used to beat my mother. Once I got big enough, I said that would never happen again. So once I got to about 5'10", 5'11", my dad, he beat my mom one night, and I grabbed a stick and I beat him with it. And that was the last time my dad lived in the house with me. So it was just me and my mom growing up, through many times, tough times, really rough times. Around then, I know a lot of times people go through their own struggles right now, but me growing up, I'm 46 years old now, but I grew up in the whole thing what they would call the crack era. So, in New York City, the crack era was really, really, really big. You see dope fiends walking around the streets. You see dope fiends in the hallways of the projects, things like that. And somehow, some way, we was able to survive. Now, the thing I walked in on what he was saying about statistic, right? Coming out of tough places, you could be a negative statistic or you could be a positive statistic. I chose to be a positive statistic. And when I could have easily went and been a negative statistic. See, doing wrong is easy to do. Doing right is the hard thing to do. So even when I saw some of my friends on the block, selling drugs, doing whatever they're doing, I still decided to say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go do something else, right? So I was able to go do something else. I was able to, go to college. I was the first one in my family to go to college. Like my whole family to go to college. Nobody had went to college in my family. So it wasn't like a lot of push for me to go there. But there was an internal motivation that I had, and also external motivation from my mother, honestly. My mother was a high school dropout. And everything that she did, I saw how our life was her being a high school dropout. A lot of it was curved. She didn't have the financial resources to make things happen. She lived off of SSI. If you're not familiar with that, then that's a monthly check that she got. She lived off a disability. She hurt her back, things like that. So at one point, my mother was bringing in $706 a month total for us to survive on. Now, granted, living in the projects, the rent was only $200. So we have $506 left to try to figure out clothes, food, and everything else. With that being said, as you can imagine, life wasn't always the greatest thing. But at the same time, I always knew there was a bigger picture. So I always strive for the bigger picture. It was times that, people will offer me, jobs or minuscule things or whatever the case is, or even stuff that I probably shouldn't have been doing. And I just said, nah, I'm not going to do that. I always saw a bigger vision. And that's what I did growing up. So like I said, going to college was a big thing for me. Now I went to a Division III school. I didn't go to a Division I school like how I coach at. I went to a Division III school, SUNY Newport, State University of New York at Newport. Many of you probably never heard of it, and it's cool, but that was my alma mater. So I went there, played Division III basketball, and I ended up being a Division III All-American my junior year. I was a Division III All-American. So in this day and age, maybe I would have transferred or whatever the case is, but I tell you this much, I was having the time of my life in college. So it was no way that I was leaving Newport. So I finished up my time, and it was a situation, and this is, once again, total transparency. When I first got to college, my grades was terrible. I had a 1.3 my first semester in college, and that was awful. That was the only time I think my mom really got on me about grades, because that report card came home, she opened it up, it said 1.3 academic probation. So I had to figure out what I'm gonna do. Now, what happened was, when I first got to college, I wanted to be an electrical engineer. I thought that sounded cool. You was able to make some money, got out of school, you made a lot of money getting out of school. Tell you this much, electrical engineering and basketball did not mix at all. It was bad. So I ended up changing my major to business, and I ended up doing some things with that. So along while I was in college, not only did I play basketball, but I tried to make connections. So one of my passions was entertainment. So I said either I want to be in the basketball world some way. Of course, back then I thought I was going to the NBA or something, and then reality had to set that, you're not going to the NBA. It's over for that. So it was either athletics or entertainment. So when I was at school, I joined the entertainment board, and I was the president of the entertainment board. And through that, I made different connections and things like that, and I ended up booking shows and tours And then for a long time when I got out of college, I ended up working for 50 Cent. I was his tour manager for about 3 years. I was his tour manager. So after I worked with 50 for 3 years, then I ended up branching off into other artists and things like that and started doing my own thing and started having concerts and tours and had my own company. But that was all about the connections that I made in college through basketball. So the connections you make in the circle that you have is very influential on your life path that you're gonna have. So after that, I ended up getting into coaching a little bit. I worked at a Division III school, then I worked at another Division III school, then I ended up being a head coach at St. Mary's High School in New York, and then I ended up, head freshman coach that is. Then I ended up being a head varsity coach of the same high school. We were top 25 in the country. We had Danny Green, who played in the NBA, and a couple other guys who went to Division I. Then after that, I ended up coming down here. One of my coaches at New Paltz ended up getting a job down here, Coach Anthony Evans, and he asked me would I want to be an assistant coach down here. So I ended up saying, yeah. I came down here, rolled the dice because I had to stop working with 50 and doing my entertainment things. I rolled the dice and I came down here, and then I was assistant coach for 6 years. He left, and I ended up being the head coach for for the time that I've been a head coach now since 2013. But the biggest thing I'll say, man, is that for me is like talking to the youth and things like that. Is that once I was in those seats, I'm no different than anybody in here, no better than anybody in here. I just chose to do something different, with the path that I was on. But I could have did, anything, left or right. So the choices you make is going to be the choices that make you. They always say when you're born, you look like your parents. When you die, you look like your decisions. So it's going to be like, what's going to be your decision when you're in that casket and things like that? Because everybody's died. There's nobody in here that's making it out of here alive. Nobody in this room making it out of here alive. Everybody's going to die at some point. But when you're in that casket, what's going to be your decisions? You're going to look like your decisions. Are you going to take care of yourself? Are you going to make something of yourself and things like that? And you're going to see it when you're in that casket. Well, you might not see it, but others will see it. So you have to make critical life choices. You have to make sometimes hard choices. Sometimes you got to get rid of some of those people that's in your circle that's detriment to your success, because that happens too. When you're growing up in tough environments, there's going to be people that's going to tell you, nah, man, don't do that. That's corny. That's weak. That's whatever the case is. And sometimes you got to put your foot down and say, no, I'm going to take that path and I'm going to be better and things like that. And then the last thing I say, man, I'm not taking. We got to take some couple questions or whatever. Is that use basketball to get you things that you might not get otherwise. Like that little round ball that he has, he has a little round ball in his hand, right? That little round ball is more powerful than you think. You think it's just like about the NBA or whatever the case is. But that little round ball, man, could take you to places that you never could think. That little round ball can take you all around this country. That little round ball can take you all around the world, because it's taking me all around the country and all around the world. I've been to places that I probably would have never go by myself. I've been to, we were doing this the other day in the office, and everybody knows, there's 50 states, right? I've been to 47 states in this country that probably I would never go to if it wasn't for that little round basketball. The little round basketball has put me in a different position that the stories I talk about with my mom struggling and living in the projects and things like that is stuff that I never have to worry about, probably in my life, honestly. Once again, I always say I talk transparent to whoever I'm talking to the youth or whatever the case is or whatever. Remember I told you, I said my mom makes $76 a day, right? $76, not a day, hell no, a month, all right? Hell no, she ain't make $76 a day. $76 a month, right? I never forget, man, my first year as a coach, the first contract I signed, it was an interim contract, and it was $125,000. I never forget it, right? And I thought that was a whole bunch of money. I was like, damn, I ain't never seen this much money in my life, or whatever. So I'm out here. I signed that contract so goddamn fast to make sure that I got on the books when he gave me that contract or whatever the case is, right? And then time went on and things got better and stuff like that. And I remember, I never forget this, man. Back in 2000, it was 2016. All right, my contract was coming to an end. They gave me a new contract or whatever the case is, and I looked at the contract, and the contract said $1 million or whatever for like the length of my contract, and I was like, what the, $1 million? I had never seen that. Like, I thought I would never see that kind of situation or whatever the case is, but all of it came from that little round basketball. And the thing I tell you, man, is that besides just trying to make it to the NBA, There's ways to make money, real money in basketball. Anybody know how much an NBA official make? Anybody know how much an NBA official make? Anybody take a guess? I happen to know three NBA officials really well. One went to school with me and things like that. Anybody know? Huh? 500,000 for the good ones, right? Like they make about between $500,000 and $700,000, depending if you do the playoffs or whatever, right? Anybody know how much a Division I official make? Like I see, a couple guys got their referee shirts on and things like that, or whatever the case is, right? But anybody know how much a college official makes? Huh? College officials at the highest level make $6,500 a game for 2 hours of work. $6,500 for 2 hours. There's not many jobs in the world that's going to pay you $6,500 for 2 hours of work or whatever. At our level, the college officials they still make $2,500, honestly, a game. It's hardly that many jobs that's going to pay you $1,250 an hour to work. Now, granted, you don't work every day and blah 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 and things like that. But there's so many ways to make money playing with the sport of basketball that sometimes we as African American men, we just see the one goal of just trying to go to the NBA, and that should be the goal. Honestly, you should try, but also you need to also realize how hard it is and what's the statistical chance of you making the NBA is almost like you might as well just go play Powerball for real. And take your chances with that. But the statistical chance of you working in the athletic profession or basketball profession and making a lot of money is something that each and every one of you guys in this room can do. Each and every one of you guys in this room could do it. And you can feed your family off of basketball. You can feed your family off of basketball. And I'm saying it, and once again, I'm not better than nobody in here, and I'm not trying to front on nobody or nothing like that, stuff like that or whatever. I'm just telling you the real, man, is that the last contract I signed was $3.5 million, like off of that basketball right there. From a kid that came from the projects, the kid that had to walk through pissy hallways, I had to walk through crack-infested streets and things like that, to now being able to pretty much take care of my family for the rest of my life through that game of basketball. And once again, I don't play. I'm not in the NBA. I'm not doing none of that or whatever the case is. And once again, I never compare myself to anybody else because there's other coaches that's making, all this money and things like that, $5 million a year, $6 million a year, whatever. I don't compare myself to anybody because comparison is a theft of joy. The moment you start keeping score with others and things like that is the moment that your joy is taken away. I'm more than comfortable in my life. I'm more than comfortable because I know where I came from and everything that I say, even when I talk to my players, I talk to them about real stuff. Like I'm a real tough coach. I'm a real hard coach. But the one thing is that I'm gonna tell you the real, though, whether you like it or not, because I have a lot of real stories, like a lot of real stories. And I don't have time to tell all the real stories. I know you're gonna play games in another 15 minutes or so or whatever the case is. But I'm telling you, man, if I was able to get out them dire environments, anybody can. Anybody can. But you gotta just lock in and really use the game of basketball, man, to take you to heights that you would never think that you can be in, man. Like I said, man, I'm in the projects of South Jamaica, Queens, man. All that stuff you see with the Knicks going on when they fucking tearing up the city and all that craziness and all whatever, right? That ain't nothing compared to like being in those projects, man. Like this is for show. Like that's for show. All that like what they doing up there now, where they beating up people with Spurs jerseys on and all that stuff like that. People used to get beat up just because you look that's nothing. Like that's nothing. You know what I mean? So if I'm telling you fellas, if I came from South Jamaica Queens projects to being able to be on ESPN and things like that, anybody in here could do it, man. But you gotta just lock in, man, and let the game of basketball and understand that there's other avenues that you can use basketball with than just going to the NBA and things like that. So I'll take, I guess, a couple questions.
Yeah, definitely. Let me ask the first question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, if you had to choose, like, who do you think your biggest basketball transformation would be as far as your players? Like, what player you think came in at a certain way and used basketball to turn their life around from the time where you've been around them?
Kylo Quinn. Kylo Quinn was my first recruit at Norfolk State. He had one scholarship offer, and that was from Norfolk State University. One scholarship offer. He did pretty good in high school. He averaged like 20 points, 10 rebounds. For some reason, he didn't get any scholarship offers. So he had one scholarship offer, and that was my first recruit ever at Norfolk State. He came in, once again, Didn't think much about it. He averaged 5 points his freshman year. 5 points, which is, a decent number for a freshman, but he didn't knock it out. He didn't even make all-rookie team or nothing like that as a freshman. Second year, he averaged 11 points, 7 rebounds. Next year after that, he averaged 16 points, 11 rebounds. Year after that, he averaged 17 points, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks or whatever. Did he end up getting drafted in the NBA and things like that? But he came from nothing. Like, he came from one scholarship offer. Like, we gave him an opportunity, and he took full advantage of the chance that he had. He also stayed loyal too. That's why I say I love him to death. He works at Norfolk State now. I love him to death because he stayed loyal. It was a chance that when he was a sophomore, this is before NIL and all that stuff like that is going on. As a sophomore, Chipola Junior College came and tried to give him $10,000 back in 2013 to leave Norfolk State, to go transfer to a junior college, to do some stuff. He said, I'm not going. I'm staying at Norfolk State. And then he ended up doing what he's doing and got drafted, and he made, tens of millions of dollars in the NBA. So he was probably like one of the biggest success stories because even he didn't believe he could do it until like probably his junior year when he saw that I could do this thing. So he was probably the biggest transformation story from a kid that didn't think he was going to the NBA at all.
Is he from your area?
He's from Queens. Yep, he's from Queens. Yep. So probably Kyle.
Next question.
Yes, sir.
Besides your mom, what pushed you to head to your next position? Help you guide you through the position choices and
I think my mom was the biggest thing. So my mom she was everything for me. My mom is no longer here. She passed away in 2011, but she was everything. Like, she was the motivation, she was the push, she was the discipline, she was all of that stuff. But also, honestly, I think a lot of times the environment around me influenced me. See, a lot of times you can let your environment around you influence you into a way that you say, I'm just gonna be a product of the environment. Or you can let it say, like, I don't wanna be part of this environment anymore. A lot, like I said, my dad left when I was 11, right? Okay, I have a son now, right? I only have one kid and things like that. Sometimes people say, if they're a bad father, they'll be like, well, I didn't have a father figure in my life, right? So I don't know how to be a father, right? Because I didn't have a father figure in my life, I know how to be a father to my kid. Because I give him everything that I wish my dad would have gave me, and not necessarily material things, but attention, understanding, talks, things like that, stuff that my dad didn't give me. So the environment that I was in helped change me to motivate me, like, I do not want to stay here forever. Like, some people, even when I go back home now, I go back home sometimes recruiting or whatever the case is, right? And like I say, I'm 46 years old. I'll see some of the same people on the same goddamn corners that I saw when I was 25 years old. And I'm just thinking, like, what the hell are y'all still doing here? This don't make no sense. So, but for me, it's like, I didn't want to be like that. I said, no, I'm gonna get through the environment, I'm gonna navigate the environment, but I ain't coming back to this shit no more. I gotta do what I gotta do. So that was my motivation too, man. So my mom and my environment was my motivation.